Jimmy's world famous roster countdown continues, and this time we have one of the transfers. Which one is it? We'll let you know.
You are Locked On Bama, your daily podcast on the Alabama Crimson Tide, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back into Locked On Bama. Luke Robinson, that's me. Jimmy Stein, that's him. This episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. I'll tell you about LinkedIn here in just a little bit. But right now, we're going to talk about Jimmy's world-famous roster countdown, which rolls on here at this time of year, every year. And we're going to start off with one Naquil Bertrand, or Bertrand. How are we saying that?
I'm also saying Naquil. Is that right?
Naquil?
I don't know. I haven't met him.
Maybe it's because he blocks people so well he puts them to sleep.
I like it. Let's go with Naquil then. But I don't. You know, our roster, the official University of Alabama roster has a pronunciation thing. For those that don't know that, you can go to the University of Alabama football roster at rolltide.com, and there is a little insignia next to some players' names, and if you click on it, you get a pronunciation out loud of the name. And I don't know if they got one up for him because he just got here, but that's one we need to check out for sure. I've been going with Naquil Bertrand, but I don't know. I think
Naquil makes more sense. It's Naquil. Transfer from Texas A&M, 6'6". I mean, he's listed at 340. I mean, do you think he's that big right now? From Philadelphia originally, loves a cheesesteak apparently. What do you think?
I'm sure he's huge. I don't have an exact, I'm sure, you know, that roster, I wonder if that's probably something they borrow from the A&M roster, the initial size, I would guess. They wouldn't, and people get so confused about that roster thing. There's no one with the media guide that stands there next to the heights and weights. I mean, it's just sort of told to them what to put down. But anyway, here's the deal about Naquil. There are only 4 tackles on the roster right now. And we can assume that we will pick up a tackle or 2 in the spring portal. But for now, we haven't done that yet. So for now, and spring practice, there are 4 tackles, which is the minimum number you need, I think, to get through a spring practice, to be honest. We need to keep them healthy. But the 4 tackles are Elijah Pritchett, Miles McVay, Wilkin Formby, and Naquil Bertrand, those 4 guys. And unless we move someone, those are the 4 tackles. Only Pritchett has played. So Bertrand is actually a pretty important player. I have him well down the rankings, and some of it's because we don't know him very well, and he didn't play at all during his freshman year at A&M. He was actually a late arrival over there. I'm sure that contributed to him not playing at all in the fall. But Luke, Elijah Pritchett's played. The other 3 have not. But if we don't add one from the portal, one of these 3 redshirt freshmen will be a starter in the fall. Maybe McVay, maybe Formby, maybe this kid. And we shouldn't rule out that it could be Bertrand, just in the sense that he's from somewhere else. He would have to beat out McVay and Formby, neither of whom have played yet. He's a big, big kid. Obviously, you know, we saw some practice tape, which is why we invited him and offered him a spot. We saw practice tape practicing against that elite defensive line A&M has. Plus, it's easy to guess Nick Saban would have called his buddy Jimbo Fisher and asked him about this kid, like, hey, should I take him? And obviously got the stamp of approval to do so. I think he's really interesting. He's huge. In terms of he wasn't a premier recruit coming out of school, that may have been academic related. I don't know really what to think of this guy. I'm just not assuming too much either way.
You say he would Nick Saban would have called his buddy. I mean, do you think Jimbo would be like, I'm going to show him this guy sucks, and I'm going to tell him he's awesome? I mean, ever since that last little brouhaha they were in, I mean, I'm not saying he sucks. Yeah. I'm just saying it seems a little odd that you would say Nick Saban was call his buddy, and I'm like, are they still buddies? I don't know. Are they?
Yeah, I would imagine that they are, but I think I read recently that Jimbo Fisher says him and Nick have not talked in a while, but I did see. But I wouldn't be surprised if there was some level of communication as it relates to this, because it makes all the sense in the world as to as they should talk about this. I mean, this is exactly the sort of thing they need to talk about. I mean, in the sense that Bertrand, I mean, Jimbo is going to know this kid backwards and forwards, and the kid's a bit of a mystery. Alabama did not recruit him out of high school. We basically recruited him out of his redshirt season practice tape, at College Station. It's a really weird situation when you think about it that way. But on the other hand, I don't assume too much one way or the other. Anyone making giant assumptions about this kid is great. How do you know that? This kid's terrible. How do you know that? I mean, again, this is in all logic a mystery kid, but the Saban staff, they didn't give away spots. There's good reason they took him, but there's a reason. Put it this way: this is the best way to sum it up. I think Pritchett's one starter for right now. The other starting spot would be between McVay, Formby, and Bertrand. And of the three, I rank Bertrand the lowest. But that's because I know less about him. I just know more about Miles McVay and Wilkin Formby because we recruited them for quite a while, and I've they've been around. I kind of know more of them.
Yeah, and I mean, again, I'm not trying to be negative about this at all because I do like the kid. I mean, when you always walk a fine line when you're talking about these kids you know very little about, especially somebody that we didn't really recruit out of high school, and all we can go on is, hey, we are willing to bet they saw some tape on him as a redshirt freshman. We're willing to bet that. We also like that he's huge and that he's from Philadelphia, a notoriously tough area. So, I mean, those are all positive things you can just sort of pull out of thin air, right?
Yeah, Barmore's from Philadelphia. He was pretty good. But again, that's not specifically related to this kid.
I wouldn't call Philadelphia necessarily a recruiting football hotbed, though.
No, it's a basketball for some reason.
Yeah.
You would think there would be more football players. I mean, it's a massive population area.
But, you also said something that struck me. You said, well, Nick Saban just doesn't hand out scholarships. And I agree with you for the most part. I look at this situation, and before Bertrand comes here, Saban probably knew, well, we only going to have about 3 guys. So maybe in this case, he's like, I'm willing to sacrifice some of the unknowns I don't know for a guy who's huge, and just let's all cross our fingers. Now, let's also say that maybe at the time Saban had a different plan. Maybe he was thinking, I'll get somebody out of the portal. Maybe he was not sure that Caden Proctor was 100% leaving, even though it seems like the writing was on the wall for that. So I don't know. I mean, I'm not down on Bertrand. I'm glad we got him, but boy, it scares me more that we're going to be counting on him.
We might be counting on him with only 4 guys, and we need 2 starters from the 4 guys.
You got 2 tackles on the red team, 2 tackles on the white team for
That's it.
8A.
Yeah, for the whole game. I mean, obviously there'll be some walk-ons, but we also don't have. A lot of people think, oh, there's endless walk-ons. We don't really have a lot. You don't have a lot of walk-ons at some spots. And one position you don't have a lot of walk-ons is tackle, just simply because good luck finding those guys. I mean, who are willing to go to school for free, who can block SEC pass rushers. I mean, it's just kind of hard to find walk-on tackles who are even, I don't know, even adequate, maybe is the best way to put it. Here's one more point about Bertrand we should mention. I do know at the time we took him, and let's keep in mind we took him before Caden Proctor left. But let's remember this. Alabama was very optimistic that they were going to land Favor Edwin, the tackle from Atlanta. He was a strong Alabama lean, and Alabama really thought they had him. And then very late in the process, he ended up getting better offers than we anticipated, I guess is the way to put that. And he ended up choosing, I think, Auburn over Alabama. Favor was always going to be a developmental guy, a guy that, like, okay, we're bringing in a guy who's raw. It's going to take some development. But after a couple of years, we think he might really be something. I know they took Naquil Bertrand on the heels of, oh, we just lost Favor Edwin. He was sort of replacing this developmental prospect that they were hoping to get from the Atlanta area. So I think even though they took Bertrand, I think they knew at the time, hey, this guy might take a year or two, but we think he's got Sunday ability. This is a Sunday upside guy. Just might take a while, but it was going to take a while with the other guy. So that's why I think they took him. He wasn't taken because it's like, oh, here's a starting tackle in 2024. That's not why they took him specifically. So that's why I think expectations should be a little low for this year. But as Luke points out, this kid is second team by default day one. So he'll be a starter on a day for at least the I guess it's the Crimson team is the number 2 offense. Or that's what's been in the past. By the way, we might have a whole new A-Day format with the new staff.
Yeah.
We probably haven't talked about that enough.
I mean, if you remember, Mike Price put all the starters on one team and then all the non-starters on another team, and the starters won 47-0, and everybody was fired up, and it was a horrible rainy day, if I remember right.
That's a dumb way to do A-Day. And I'm going to say the same thing. If DeBoer does the same thing, I'm going to say it's dumb. I mean,
that sounds like something a guy who wore a members-only jacket that's a medium wore when he stepped off the plane to come to Tuscaloosa. That's exactly what he did. So it sounds like a guy who'd use a company credit card.
What do you get at? You only get 15 practices in the spring. In my mind, that's a wasted day, a wasted practice. At least under Saban's format, it was a real competitive game, and teams the teams were trying to win. And they're playing against like talent. The ones played against the ones, the twos played against the twos, and it made for a competitive game. And I think you get something out of it.
I get it a little bit. I get it in the sense that maybe he was like, I want my starters to come in with some confidence. And so maybe if we beat the heck out of these 7th graders, maybe they'll feel better, but whatever. Jimmy, I need to tell everybody about LinkedIn.
Sure.
Worst segue ever. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just another job board. LinkedIn has a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, which makes it the best place to hire. It gives you access to professionals you can't find anywhere else. LinkedIn does all that while making the process easy and intuitive. Hiring is easy when you have that many quality candidates. So easy, in fact, that 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats and might not have the time or resources to hire. LinkedIn is constantly finding ways to make the process easier. They even just launched a feature that helps you write job descriptions, making the process even that much easier and quicker. 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Post your job for free. Terms and conditions, they're going to apply. Let's move on to the next one on your list. That is Jahlil Hurley. This is a guy that I think, boy, maybe I shouldn't be. Maybe I should feel about him the way I feel about Bertrand. But I feel better about Hurley contributing. I think he's an incredible athlete from the state of Alabama, so maybe I've gotten to see him a little bit more than I would have seen a guy from Philadelphia that went to Texas A&M that we didn't recruit the first time around. They didn't play for A&M, essentially, getting minutes at least. So I feel pretty good about Jahlil Hurley. In fact, Jimmy, I'm going to – I feel like I'm calling you out.
I need to be called out.
I feel like he's low.
Yeah, he might be low. And this is the number one reason he might be low. The DB room just got wrecked by attrition. I mean, the DB group as a whole is wrecked. And as much as we're talking about there's 4 tackles, in terms of guys returning to the team that have either practiced or played college football, there are just 2 cornerbacks. Damani Jackson and Jahlil Hurley. And Damani played at Southern Cal, and Jahlil just redshirted. Every other cornerback right now on the team is a true freshman. And that's a good group. I mean, Mbakwe, Xavier Brown, Zay Mincy, there's good players there. But in terms of guys who are veterans, Damani Jackson, who played somewhere else, and Jahlil Hurley, who redshirted.
Who played somewhere else that has a bad defense, by the way.
Correct. And he is the veteran star of the cornerback group, right now. So I may have Hurley way too low, just in the sense that we may be talking about a starting cornerback on the 2024 football team. I think that is very, very possible. Now, I don't believe that's going to happen. I mean, if you're like, okay, what do you really think is going to happen at corner? I think they're going to sign a kid or two out of the portal in the spring that will be a starter. That's what I think is going to happen. I also think these true freshmen, may prove to be the freaks we need. Jalen Ibakwe may be an immediate starter. Zabian Brown could be an immediate starter. Zay Mincy could be an immediate starter. My guess is one of those three is just going to be ready. Just out of odds dictate one of the three will be, because any of the three could be. Maybe all three are. But Jahlil Hurley, redshirted, not a lot of buzz. Just to be honest, there wasn't a lot of buzz about him in the fall. In other words, we do have sources. We do talk to people that are with the team and at practice all the time. And Hurley's not a name we heard a lot in terms of like, hey, watch out for this dude. And as we get further down the countdown and talk more about red shirts that are ranked higher, there was buzz about some of these guys. But Hurley, not so much. Now, some of it could be the position. Saban didn't substitute a lot at cornerback. Saban's hard on his cornerbacks. But Hurley was a top-notch prospect. I loved him as a prospect. Still love that he's on the team and has a chance here. But, yeah, I may have him ranked too low, Luke, in the sense that it is conceivable this is a starting cornerback versus Western Kentucky in 2024.
I think you made a great – I was hoping you wouldn't make this point so I could look smart. But you brought up the position. When you got Terrion Arnold on one side, who was a first-team All-American by some folks, you got Kool-Aid, who was a first-team All-American by some folks on the other side. Both of them were first or second team by just about everybody. That would be the one, I swear, other than kicker or punter, I would think we would hear the least amount of buzz about cornerback, because you're right, Saban doesn't sub a ton of cornerbacks. He has two of the best in the country, and he lets them play a lot. And that makes a lot of sense to me. But, we've heard some other stuff about, we heard about other things about center, or for instance, because we had center issues. So we were like, what's going on at center? And so it seems like we talked about who else could play center a lot. But when you don't have any problems at cornerback, or we had problems at quarterback for some folks, not for me, but for some folks. And I'm not implicating you on that one, I swear. So some people would like to hear about quarterback. Plus, you always like to hear about quarterback. Running backs, we've been doing a platoon system since Derrick Henry, it feels like. I mean, Najee Harris, maybe not so much. But wide receiver, of course, use a lot of receivers, and none of them really had fantastic years this year. So we were talking about all them. But when your corners are so good and both All-Americans, yeah, you're probably not going to hear like, we got this one guy who's going to be better than Kool-Aid or Terrion. Really? We do?
And if you have a limited time with a source, it's not going to be a question at the top of your list either. Exactly. If you only got a handful of questions to ask or things to find out, you're not like, okay, tell me about the corners at the bottom of the depth chart, because they're just never going to play. So that's part of it. But man, I loved Hurley as a prospect. Hey, one thing I was right. I'll pat myself on the back here. There was a lot of talk, even amongst coaches, that Hurley would ultimately project to play safety. I was adamant that he was a corner the whole time. I was, the tape I watch, I'm like, this is a cornerback. This guy needs to stick at corner and stay at corner. And maybe I shouldn't congratulate myself this early in his career, but so far I'm right. A lot of people thought he would be a safety in short order. But no, he's stuck the whole year at corner and is still a corner now going into year 2.
Hope he's a corner this year, and I hope he's a good one, because I'll tell you something, he's the kind of kid I want to bet on. If you want to bet on something else, let's bet on FanDuel. FanDuel is America's #1 sports book. Boy, I know Zach's going to kill me for some of these segues today. Happy Super Bowl week to all who celebrate from FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. If you're like me, Super Bowl week is all about scoring the best seat on the couch, grabbing your favorite football snacks, and placing some super bets. You can bet on the coin toss. You can bet on the length of the national anthem. You can bet on a lot of stuff with FanDuel. FanDuel has so many ways for you to end the season with a W or several Ws. Not only can you bet on who wins Super Bowl 58, but FanDuel also has bets for which players will score a touchdown, how many points will be scored, how many catches so-and-so makes, how many times they show Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift, one right after the other, all that stuff, and so much more. New customers, join today and you'll get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every moment more with FanDuel, which is an official partner of the NFL. So next time on the podcast, we're going to talk about Wilkin Formby when it comes to your countdown. But I figured we'll save this segment. This is going to be our traditional third segment right now. We're going to save for basketball a lot because, man, I'm so proud of this team. And I know you guys love football so much, and that's what we love talking to. But this team's so good. I want to give some props to one of your posters there on Bama Online. Okay, I found something that was very interesting. This came from EUG Dan. Dan? Or is it like
I know the poster. I
know
of the poster.
Union G Dan?
Never asked him, but this is a pretty smart guy.
Okay. He said, look, here's some things we also need to figure out, not figure out, but think about when it comes to the team seems to be peaking right now. And these things in the summer, we talk about them. This is what's so funny. In the summer, when you see an injury or something, you're like, okay, it may take him through middle of the year to get better and really get in the system. But in the moment when the season comes, we're like, why isn't so-and-so better? And you don't even bring up the fact that he had to get over that injury when we talked about it just a few months ago. And I use we as collectively, not Jimmy and me necessarily. But he brought this up. Wagi had foot surgery in the summer. Diabute had knee surgery in the summer. Stevenson should be a high school senior. Now, we have talked about that. And there is a different mental and physical strength required in college and the SEC, gaining strength and confidence, et cetera. True. Now, on top of that, you got 3 brand new coaches. One of the broadcasters on the show the other night said, I've never heard of 3 assistants all getting D1 jobs the same year.
Yeah, highly unusual.
Very unusual. He said, I just never heard of it. So you have 8 new players, 3 new coaches, the toughest pre-SEC schedule known to mankind to identify strengths, weaknesses, and roles, and gelling at the right time. He's absolutely correct. And there was something else that I saw. This came from Jordan Harper at Harper Nation 24. And this is just a shout out to Nate Oates. He says, Nate Oates has coached 156 games while at Alabama and has a record of 108-48. Of the 108 wins, 70 of them have come by double digits. That's 65% of them. 2 of them have come by more than 50 points or more. Now, okay, that's I don't remember who they were against, and they probably weren't great teams, but it doesn't matter. That's pretty awesome.
One was against Vanderbilt last year, right? Didn't we?
I think you're right about that. Now, and one of them probably should have been against LSU that time we lit up the scoreboard in Baton Rouge, but whatever.
That was cool.
My point is, I think that's a very good observation that everybody's like, man, where's Wagi been all year? Why ain't he been doing this all year? And we just completely leave out the fact, oh, yeah, we all talked about his summer surgery and how it may take him a little bit longer to get into the rhythm of the team. And now he's getting into it. And they also apparently showed Diabute some tape of Draymond Green. I hope like on the court tape, not fighting his own teammates tape.
Yeah, and there's Draymond at Cobra Kai beating up a bunch of kids.
Yeah. If Diabute had come in and been like, hey, Coach, I did just like you said on the tape. What'd you do? Oh, I beat up 3 kids on the way over here. Isn't that right? Because they said something about a lawsuit. But anyway, this team is really coming together well. And it's going to be the schedule coming up is, boy, I thought the schedule at the beginning of the year was bad. I mean, how does this happen to us?
The back half of this schedule is really hard. And I'll be the wet blanket. We may not win the league because the back of the schedule is so hard. It's tough.
Tell me the free wins in this lineup. At Auburn, at LSU, Texas A&M, Florida at home, at Kentucky, at Ole Miss, Tennessee at home, at Florida, Arkansas. The only free win to me is Arkansas March 9th, and I really don't consider that a free win because by then they may be a totally different team. They're still probably not going to be very good, but Arkansas just they've got a lot of talent, and it was sort of like Alabama in 2000 in football when. Look, if that team ever showed, you remember that team beat Ole Miss that year. We had no business beating Ole Miss that year, and we beat them. I mean, we were awful. Like, why are we beating y'all? So what I'm saying is Arkansas could do this because we had talent. Arkansas could do the same thing because because they have talent. But at LSU is no give to me. I mean,
no, that's not a gimme win for anyone. I mean, we might win. We'll even probably win, but that's not a gimme. There's no gimmies there. Maybe, like you said, the home game against Arkansas, any home game, not including the Tennessee game, we could even be an underdog in the home game against Tennessee. We should win the other home games. But when I say we should just means I believe we'll be favored to win. All the road games are really difficult, and at Auburn and at Kentucky, I mean, if you win those games, you are going to win the SEC. You're right. If you win those games, you probably can make it to the Final Four, to be honest.
If we win at Auburn Wednesday night, okay, I've already bought tickets to the Final Four because I'm taking my son to the Final Four because it's in Phoenix and he goes to Arizona State. I will buy more tickets to the Final Four. I don't think we're winning Wednesday night. There's no shame in that. Like I said, when we beat Auburn in Tuscaloosa, hey, that guarantees a split, and I think that that's good because I think Auburn's a good team. They're going to be geeked up, on goofballs come Wednesday night. They're going to be ready to rock. Honestly, people may think I'm nuts. I think it's going to be a heck of a lot easier to win at Kentucky than it's going to be to win at Auburn. People are winning at Kentucky with pretty
won't be regularity. Kentucky won't be foaming at the mouth to beat us like Auburn will. And I'll give Auburn a ton of credit for this, Luke. This is one thing Auburn is really good at. When they get up to play Alabama, they play well. They do a good job of playing well in those tight games. And yeah. I fully expect the Auburn A game on Wednesday. That's what I expect to see. And I think the Auburn A game is really tough to beat Neville Arena. And like me and you said the last show, and I'd stick to it. Yeah, I don't think Alabama's going to win. I also would not pick UConn to win at Auburn on Wednesday. And I think UConn's going to win the NCAA tournament.
All right, that's going to do it for today's podcast. We'll be back tomorrow. Thank you guys so much for chiming in and subscribing and listening and sending messages. And there have been some folks send me some things to do in Tahoe, and I appreciate you guys a ton. You guys are the best. We love you, and roll tide, everybody.
Roll Tide.